I'll warn you up front. If you're going to ask me the same questions that I answered on 3 different shows this morning, I'm not answering them, okay? So if you ask them, I'm just going to skip them and move on to the next thing. I've said all that I care to say on those topics in 3 different interviews this morning. If you got more questions or you want them, go get the transcripts. But I'm not going to be repeating myself this morning. Got other questions on other things? Happy to take those on. David? Well, HMS Host is going to make those determinations going backwards on food selections. I am excited about this because, you know, I spend a lot of time on these roads, and if you do, quite frankly, these are pretty dated and you know, not very well functioning places. The folks that work here now are doing the very best they can with the facilities they've been given. But now with these new facilities, it'll be much better. There will be periods of time where rest areas will be closed while we're renovating and rebuilding. But there will always be another rest area a few miles south or a few miles north for you to go to during that period of time. And so as Grover Cleveland was closed, when that was being done on the Turnpike side, the same thing will happen here, but it'll be staggered. All of these projects will be done by 2024, and many of them will be done well before that. So we do that in order, David, to deal with the issue you addressed, which was, you know, to stagger them to make sure there are facilities for both fuel and food available for folks as they drive up and down these 2 roadways. David? People have the right to be offended by whatever offends them, David. They have the right to be offended by whatever offends them, and those who participate in the conduct have to be responsible for what they've done. You know, I know Parker and his wife. I think they're very good folks. Wouldn't have been something that Mary Pat and I would have done. I didn't see it. I've just read about it. I'll tell you this. This election has now become a very simple election. There's one candidate who guarantees you he will raise your taxes at least $1.3 billion. And quite frankly, it'll be a lot more than that, because since then, he's also announced additional taxes that he would put on. Now, he has a gun tax. He has a mass transit tax on top of the $1.3 billion in taxes he's already announced. As I said before, the bottom line here is, if you think in New Jersey that you don't give the government enough money, then vote for Phil Murphy. If you think you give the government enough money or too much money, then vote for Kim Guadagno. The specifics of all the different plans and whatever are not something that I'm going to really get into. What I'm going to say is I support the Lieutenant Governor because she will follow the philosophy that this administration has followed for the last 8 years, which is New Jerseyans are overtaxed. And we've done everything we could and reduced many taxes and eliminated some over the last 8 years. That's the path the state should continue on, not jacking taxes up on people. We can't afford to lose more rich people in this state. And Phil Murphy may be the only rich guy left by the time he gets done, if he were ever to become governor. Dustin? I've said everything I'm going to say on it, Dustin. Next. 140 days, David, not that I'm counting. I'd like to make sure we get new rest areas on the Turnpike and Parkway. Check. Done. You know, I want to... Listen, the opioid crisis is an enormous priority for me, has been for a while, and will continue to be throughout. And we have a number of things that we'll be announcing over the course of the next month that'll make it clear what my priorities are. The opioid crisis, though, will be the prime focus of my time and my attention, because too many people in the state are dying, and everything we can do to try to slow that down is something that I'll be attempting to do both on the state level and on the national level. Yeah, there's a bunch of things that get my goat, David. But what I would tell you is that I stand ready during the lame duck session to do anything that the legislature cares to do that makes sense. So if they wanted to deal with the sick pay issue in lame duck, I'm happy to do it, because it's a disgrace that we have billions of dollars being paid to people for not having been sick. It's a disgrace. It's an outrage to the taxpayers. I've been saying it for 8 years, but the legislature so far has been owned by the unions and won't do it. We need to extend the interest arbitration cap. That should be done in lame duck before it expires on December 31st. And you talk to any mayor in this state, Republican, Democrat, or Independent, and they will tell you that needs to be done. You listen to the Democrats, Phil Murphy won't answer the question. Steve Cini says he's waiting to hear what Phil Murphy has to say. And Vinnie Prieto's been kicked out of office. So, I don't know that I'm, optimistic about that stuff, but I'm ready to do it. Those are things that need to be done for the taxpayers, because I'll tell you this, if the interest arb cap does not get put back in place, property taxes, which have gone up an average over the last 7 years of 2.25%, will go back to their 7% increases that happened in the 10 years before that, and folks in New Jersey won't stand for that. They just won't. And I don't care how much the unions will kiss Murphy's rear end. The voters won't put up for it. I don't believe, by the way, in unlimited pay increases for public sector workers. Which roads are you talking about? Well, how about being specific? Every road's in bad shape. This one right out here is in bad shape. Oh, Route 21 doesn't lead you to a service area, so what's your point? Point is, we have a $2 billion transportation trust fund per year that has already begun. It is the largest investment the state's ever made. Last year, the state spent more money on roads than in any year in state history. So if you don't like the roads, complain to your legislator. Next? Yeah. I read that story too. That has not been the experience that I've heard from most business owners at the Jersey Shore. Again, this is one of those anticipatory crises that people like to gin up. I haven't heard that from business owners at the Jersey Shore, that they're having any trouble employing people. At this point, the only problem is that unemployment's at 4.2%. And so, employers are having a hard time finding people to work because so many people are at work. 4.13 million people in New Jersey are at work, more than any time in the state's history. So to the extent that people are having a hard time finding people to hire, it's because we have more people employed than any time in the state history. The economy is doing as well or better as it's done at any time since the 1990s. And so that's part of the challenge. So I think the challenge is much broader than just the immigration issue. I think the challenge is that we have a state that is reaching full employment. 4% is generally considered, 4% unemployment is generally considered full employment by economists. We're at 4.2%. So I think we're going to see a lot of challenges for employers here if we continue the policies we've been pursuing. But if we raise taxes, he talks about wanting to raise corporate business taxes hundreds of millions of dollars. He wants to raise the income tax hundreds of millions of dollars on wealthy people who create jobs. And he thinks that somehow that won't have an effect on employment. It will. And so, I don't know whether the immigration piece will play that bigger role. That's something we'll have to see next summer. But right now, at least, I haven't heard anything like that from Jersey Shore employers that I've spoken to. Just a little louder. Sure. I pardon people every year, I think, that I've been in office. Counsel's office is looking at a raft of applications that have come into the parole board for different types, either full pardon or commutations. And Jim DiGiulio, who's my chief counsel, is reviewing those along with the parole board and the Attorney General's office, and they'll put a number on my desk that they recommend. I'll review them and decide what to do. But I'm not waiting till the end to do it. They come to me on a rolling basis, and a lot of them I just don't agree with, so I don't sign them. I send them back. But I do expect I'll wind up pardoning some more people before I go. But how many, I don't know. And it's not like we're holding them back to do it at the end. As they come, I take them on a rolling basis. So we'll announce them as they come, and I decide to pardon someone if I do. most of those things happened before we even got here. So, the fact is that there has not been a large increase in that during our time in office. I think that the New Jersey Transit Management is sensitive to those issues, but you're always going to have issues like that in any large organization. Where you're going to have lawsuits that are filed and settlements that are made. We have not seen any type of systemic problem at New Jersey Transit regarding those issues. I can't comment on what a plaintiff's lawyer who makes their money from suing people says about their negotiations with the Attorney General's office, which I wasn't involved in. So I have no idea what she's talking about. You have to talk to the Attorney General's office about that. David? And David, the legislature's out of town. My ability to do things is limited by what I can do through executive authority without them around. And there's a campaign to replace me going on. This is not the opportunity to start like a whole bunch of new initiatives, I've got 140 days left. There's things that I'd like to finish up, that I'd like to do. There's issues that will come up that we can't anticipate, which happens all the time, that we'll be prepared to deal with and will deal with as they come up. And I've given you a couple of examples of some things that I'd like to at least see considered during the lame duck session. But again, there's 140 days left. So I'm going to sit here and lay out a whole, a mini state of the state for you and think that it's going to get done. That's not going to happen. I'm almost 2,800 days in. David, 2,780 as of today. So, I've had plenty of time to try to do the things I've wanted to do. I've been successful at most of what I wanted to try to do. There's some disappointments and things I haven't been able to get done, but that's the nature of this business, especially when you have divided government. And so we'll continue to stay on top of things, but we're not going to lay out, a ton of new legislative initiatives for the very short, lame duck period that will come when there will be a new governor, either the lieutenant governor or Ambassador Murphy, who will be also laying out their priorities for the next 4 years. So, I've gone through this, and I want to try to be sensitive also to the prerogatives of the incoming governor, whoever that turns out to be. It's not my job to do their job. It's my job to finish mine. David? Those are federal. I don't have any jurisdiction. Hotel price gouging is just something that's going to happen, and you have to be vigilant, and the Attorney General of Texas will have to be vigilant about that the way ours was. And we brought a number of prosecutions, not only against hotels, but against other places, stores that were price gouging for water and for other things. And we brought a number of those prosecutions. I think that's in the standard playbook. I think the kind of things that I've shared with the governor of Texas are how you deal with a massive situation and try to break it down into digestible and achievable goals. And when you first sit down, I remember sitting down on the morning of October 30th at the Emergency Operations Center and getting the briefing from all the different cabinet officers about everything that had happened in the last 36 hours and trying to imagine, how are you going to deal with all this? Thousands of schools closed, most of our major roadways impassable. And, so part of what I said to him was, listen, I think what people need to have is a confidence that, A, you haven't forgotten them. So you need to be seen a lot, not just on TV, but on the ground, in the neighborhoods and in the places where people are coming back to and having to deal with the very emotional moment of watching their home either destroyed or badly damaged and their belongings destroyed. And that's an emotional time, and they need to see the governor there to be assured that they haven't been forgotten. Secondly, what they want is a return to some semblance of normalcy. And the way we viewed that was 4 steps. First was getting their power back on. Second was getting their roadways to be passable. Third was making sure that gasoline was available both for generators and for automobiles so people could travel. And fourth was getting schools reopened and kids back in school. If you can achieve those 4 things within a relatively short period of time, people get a sense that normalcy can return. And I think that's the hope you need to give to people. So those are the kind of things I shared. There are a lot of specifics that I have spoken about and will speak about with Governor Abbott regarding interaction with the federal government and the different challenges that get placed in front of you there. But that's too much nitty-gritty to get into here. But those are 2 things that off the top I think are things that I learned specifically from the storm and my experience in dealing with Sandy that I think would be helpful to the folks in Texas who are going through it now. Anything else? Yeah. New Jersey, if its economy is growing, can afford a lot in terms of tax relief because that money that's put back in the hands of taxpayers is most typically spent to help to support and grow the economy. So I do think that's true, but not if you're going to go the opposite route and raise taxes and take more money out of the economy and put it into, bigger salaries and perks for public employees, which is apparently, what Mr. Murphy's plan is. That and to create a government-owned and run bank. That's a great idea because nothing could go wrong there possibly. With taxpayer money being invested by, his buddies from Goldman Sachs. And I'm sure nothing could go wrong there. So, it depends on which way you want to approach this. Do you believe that the people of New Jersey are better off spending their own money, or do you believe that they don't give us enough already in the $35 billion they give us, and that they need to give us more? And so I think the Lieutenant Governor can absolutely, it will take work, and she'll have to make some hard choices about other spending that will need to be eliminated. No question. It won't be fixed just by fraud, waste, and abuse or any of that hoo-ha. The stuff that we did were hard choices that we were criticized for in some quarters of spending that we've cut. We're down nearly 11,000 state employees. That saved a significant amount of money by attrition over time. Those are hard decisions to make because, believe me, every cabinet commissioner comes to me and say they need more employees. Every one of them wants to grow the empire, and you got to be the guy who says no. And if she wants to do the things that she's talking about, she's going to have to be the woman who says no. And you're not popular sometimes when you say no, but it can be done. But it's going to take a lot of discipline, a lot of hard work. And, if she's willing to do that, and because of the continuation of these pro-growth policies, the economy continues to grow in the way it does or even better, well, then you're going to have the finances to be able to do what she's talking about. Yeah, David. When was the last time I drove a car? I've driven a little bit because my son just got his driver's license. So, we kind of... Do I need to be retested? Listen, I wasn't very good before, so God knows how bad I'm going to be now. But I've gotten a re-education because Patrick just got his driver's license last Wednesday. So we were doing a little practicing and parallel parking and all that fun stuff together as he was getting ready to take his driver's test. So I've been able to do a little bit of driving in that way. But if Commissioner Martinez or whoever the new governor puts in at MVC asks for a retest, I'll be happy to belly up to the bar and take the retest, David. But with the proviso that, as you all remember who covered the 09 campaign, I wasn't a great driver to begin with. So, this has been 8 relatively safe years on New Jersey roads with other people driving me. But one of the things about me leaving office is I'm going to be back out there untethered. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, well, I had to go through that now because my son was going through it, so I was trying to... It's much more complicated. The questions are much tougher than when I took my test, 35 years ago or so. But fortunately, Patrick passed. There was a lot of nervousness on his part, about whether he would or wouldn't, because both his older siblings passed on their first try. So he's a little bit concerned. He didn't want to be the first one who didn't. But luckily for him, he passed, and now he's got also something we didn't get back then. Like he's got the conditional license, like it's not this way, it's this way, and gets it for a year or something like that. So all kinds of new stuff going on. He says that I signed the law that made that required. I told him I didn't remember. I denied having anything to do with making it harder, but apparently I did. Other questions? All right, I want to thank we're being kind to the late arrivals, are we? All right. Oh, okay, good. Sure. I communicated this morning with Governor Abbott, again, to let him know the Blackhawks were coming that they asked for, and that we're sending, National Guardsmen and women who are trained and had experience in the Sandy rescue efforts. And I also told them that we've got another 3,500 National Guardsmen and men and women here who participated in the Sandy effort, that if he needs them, we'll send them. So that's a pretty significant commitment on our part. He has not yet asked for them, but I told him this morning that if he wanted them, they were there, and that we would be happy to send them. So we'll do anything that they need us to do. I've also made sure that BPU has spoken to PSE&G and Exelon, JCP&L, to make sure that they're ready to go to Texas to assist in the restoration of power. We got power workers from all over America, as you'll recall, who came here during Sandy, working on neighborhood streets to restore power from all over the country, drove here in their trucks to help us. So we certainly want PSE&G, JCP&L, and Atlantic City Electric to be ready to do the very same thing, and I've been assured that they are. So remember something, Governor Abbott's still trying to get his arms around all this and all the different things that he's going to need, and everyone's going to be an armchair quarterback. I'm not going to do that. I'm here to help when he needs it. We're here to provide resources that he needs. I'm in one of the unique positions of knowing how overwhelming this can be. And so, all I've continued to assure him is make one decision at a time. That's all you can do. Don't try to make every decision all at once. You can't. Make one decision at a time and then move on to the next one. And we'll be there to help him in any way we can, both with advice and, more importantly, with resources for the folks in Texas and whatever they need. So our Department of Corrections is sending blankets, over 3,000 blankets to folks in Texas for their sheltering needs. So we're trying to address it on every avenue that we can, send help, and make sure that we're doing it in an organized way so it just doesn't get down there and sit, but that can actually be utilized by folks who are in need. You're welcome. Anything else? All right. Yeah. You didn't hear it? Go back and do the tape, baby. I'm not doing the Cruz thing again. I've done enough on Cruz today. I did 3 interviews talking about Cruz. If you're not sure of what my feelings are regarding what he said in 2012 and 13, what he repeated last night in a recovery shelter, and how what he said is an absolute lie, then go on the internet. It's everywhere from what I understand. So I don't think there's a lot of ambiguity about my feeling on this. Fact is, there should not be politics involved in this process. In 2012, when we were 6 days away from a presidential election, I welcomed the President of the United States here, who I had been campaigning against for months, and we treated each other with respect because it was our job for the people who elected us. And I took a lot of heat for that from my own party for treating the President of the United States with respect. If I had to do it again today, I'd do exactly the same thing. Because my job is not to be the leader of the Republican Party at a moment like that. My job is to be the governor of the state of New Jersey. And so in the very same way, I think anybody who's in public office who's going to have an impact on all of this, they need to put their politics aside and they need to do their job, which is to get these people help as quickly as they possibly can. Katrina, it only took 6 days for them to vote an aid bill. 10 days in Hurricane Andrew. It took 66 days after Sandy. That's unacceptable. And Congress should move back to the model they had for Andrew and Katrina and away from the politicized model that Ted Cruz helped to provide in 2012 and 13 for Superstorm Sandy. So I feel strongly about it. I won't back down from it. And as long as Senator Cruz continues to make statements in real time now that are wholly inaccurate regarding the Sandy Aid bill, someone who was there at the time and knows the bill better than he does will call him out on it, and that's me, and I'll continue to. Listen, as I said this morning, Ted makes it up as he goes along, and purely for political purposes. And I found that when I ran against him for president. I found that before I ran against him, and he's apparently continuing the same show. And it's irresponsible, and it fires people up. I can't tell you how many responses that we got, last night on social media about people saying that it was all pork barrel spending. Come to Monmouth and Ocean County, to the homes that have been rebuilt, to the homes that have been raised, to the new power plants that are resilient against storm. Come to the businesses that have been rebuilt and are creating jobs in this state. Come to the areas where the roadways have been rebuilt, where the rails have been rebuilt, and tell those people that was pork barrel. It's not pork barrel. That's the federal government's job to respond to a natural disaster. It's always been the federal government's job, not one state's job. And the federal government needs to continue to do that. So Senator Cruz is doing all that stuff just because he wants to make himself look important and get himself on TV. Well, he decided to get himself on TV again last night with his little baseball hat in the recovery center, trying to look normal, which is hard for him. And the fact is that I'm not going to let him do it. I'm not going to let him come out here and continue to perpetuate the baloney that he perpetuated in 2012 and 13. So as long as I'm around on this issue, I know it much better than he ever will, and I will continue to call him out on it. And he wants to go face-to-face on it, I'm happy to, because I've forgotten more about Sandy than he ever knew. I can guarantee you that. Anything else? Can I ask about Ted Cruz again? Good. Thanks to the Turnpike Authority, folks. Thanks to HMS Host and Sunoco. We appreciate your partnership. We look forward to another 25 years of partnership with very good organizations. Thanks to the folks in my administration who helped along the way to get this done as well. And for the people in New Jersey, over the course of the next 7 years, you're going to see every one of these rest stops redone, modernized, and you're going to have a much better place to make your stops. And since I'm going to be driving again, David, looking forward to that. It's going to be a really great place for me to stop. So thank you all for being here today. Appreciate it.